Well, it officially snowed the other day, and it snowed a lot, like there were snowmen outside my window in Austin, Texas, otherwise known as Satan's butthole. But I guess that means it's really winter now, and that means less miles in the saddle. Well, not for me, because again, it's like 60 degrees outside and sunny today, but for those of you living in colder climates, chances are you've already laid your motorcycle up for the winter. Now, the process for storing your motorcycle is pretty well documented, but today I'm going to cover some of the most important and useful things that you should be doing to your bike while you can't ride it that you're probably not thinking of. Since we have a lot of time where you're not on the bike, you don't need to do all of these things all at once. In fact, I'd suggest tackling them once a week, just so that you can take it a little slower than you might otherwise and make sure you get it done right. Not to mention, it's free quality time with your motorcycle, and who doesn't love that? Before I get into this list of things to do, I want to give you the number one thing not to do with your motorcycle while it's up on blocks for the winter. Don't turn your motorcycle on and run it for a few minutes every couple of days. That doesn't do a damn thing for your motorcycle except drain the battery. I know you think cycling the engine keeps the gas in the lines from gumming up or keeps the oil in the cylinders, but if you're really that concerned, you're better served by taking an actual ride, even if it's just a few miles. With that said, let's cover the most important maintenance items you're probably not doing. I'm starting off this list today with the single most important thing that people always forget to do, and that's mouse-proof your bike. And yes, I'm talking about little fuzzy rodents, not the thing sitting on your desk. Unless you live in a barn, then maybe it is both a little fuzzy rodent and the thing sitting on your desk. Mice and rats love to find their way into motorcycles and make little homes in the exhaust pipes, air boxes, under your seat, anywhere you might have some excessive space that is covered from the elements. Not only that, but they'll chomp their way through your wiring harness for no reason other than spite, I guess. All you need to do to save yourself a truly expensive headache is plug your exhaust pipe with one of those rubber stoppers used to keep water out of your pipe while you're washing your bike, or if you're not feeling fancy, just stuff a rag in there. As for your airbox, that might take a little bit more ingenuity based on your bike's setup, but for most stock airboxes, cramming a rag in the intake port is usually enough. If you think that I'm blowing this rat and mouse thing out of proportion, a buddy of mine had his Diavel in his garage for just a few weeks, and that was enough time for rats to find their way in and chomp their way into all of the wires and brick the whole motorcycle. Having that repaired was not a fun experience. You should also set out some rat traps and bait to keep them away from your bike. Seriously, do not overlook this one because finding out your bike's been destroyed from the inside out sucks. While you've got your bike apart mouse-proofing it, you should also take the time to install a motorcycle tracker, because if you think that motorcycle thieves take the winter off, you're sorely mistaken. In fact, a bike that sits for a long time is a better target for theft than one that moves every day. Even if it's some unappealing rust bucket, it's still worth money. Monimoto makes the best motorcycle tracker out there. It's a small self-contained device with no wires because it runs on its own long-lasting batteries, which can last up to a year. With no wires, it means it won't have an impact on the health of your motorcycle's battery, and there's nothing to get pinched or kinked or take up space inside your bike, and you can literally hide the Monimoto anywhere. I mean, sure, you could just slap it under your seat if you have no imagination, but since your bike's taken apart already, you might as well tuck it under a fairing or somewhere a thief won't even think to look. Also, since there's no wires, you can swap the Monimoto from bike to bike if you want to track a different one or if you end up buying a new bike for the spring. Take it from me, bike theft sucks, and a tracker bought after the fact doesn't do a damn thing. Click that link down below and check out everything Monimoto has to offer. Next up, I wanted to cover one that people often do during the riding season, but makes more sense to do while your bike's in storage, and that's do your big mod. Maybe you want to install a power commander, or change your airbox, or put in a full system exhaust, or install a turbo and a stretched swing arm. But regardless of which mod you're doing, it makes more sense to do it when the bike isn't moving and you can spend all the time in the world on it. Oftentimes, mods like fuel controllers or full exhaust can go from a 30-minute job to a 5-hour job in the blink of an eye. You need to pull off more plastics than you thought, tie into all the fuel injectors, maybe you accidentally stripped a bolt and need to order a replacement one. And to all those keyboard warriors saying that only boneheads strip bolts, you just haven't worked on your bike enough. If your project does turn into a multi-day excursion, it's better to do all of that while you're not missing any good riding weather. It's also worth taking a little longer to do the job right the first time than having something come loose later down the road and then having to do it all over again. Not to mention you can save a little bit of money while you're not riding and afford to buy the motorcycle part you want instead instead of just slapping it on the old credit card and carrying it for months. Sure, you might not be able to take your bike out right away and test out your new and improved ride, but consider it a present from your past self to your future self. Number 3, you should take a long weekend and clean your bike from top to bottom. No, I'm not just talking about hosing it off and wiping it down with a rag, but really getting in there and cleaning everything you can. Clean all the dirt and grime from your fairings, clean the rocks that have built up in your belly pan, clean and polish your rims, especially your rear wheel since it gets covered in chain lube. Clean your headlight housings and the turn signals, and most importantly, clean under your seat. I know it might sound silly to be wiping down the underside of your seat, but trust me, a good 10 to 15 minutes every now and again keeping the under seat area spotless will go a long way to making your bike feel like new. Not to mention that dust getting in the connectors of sensitive electronics can lead to shoddy connections, poor signals, or even water damage if you get a lot of buildup on the seals. But not only should you be cleaning your bike, but you should be tending to any chips or dents or dings that you might have accumulated during the riding season. Maybe you were following a dump truck and a loose rock knocked a bit of paint off of your tank. That actually happened to me one time, and I was left with a spot of unpainted metal about the size of my pinky fingernail. That loved to rust up. Instead of just addressing the rust as it builds up, you should get some paint pens and fix it. You could also replace worn out grips and get new levers, anything that makes your bike feel showroom shiny again. It'll feel good when you go out for the first ride of the season and your buddies ask you if you got a whole new bike. Number 4, you should check and replace your battery. Look, 9 times out of 10, when you go to test your battery after the season, it'll be just fine. And if that's the case, just hook it up to a tender and let it be. But maybe you left your headlights on one time and needed a jump start. If that's the case, you probably noticed your battery is struggling to turn your bike on after that. Maybe it takes an extra couple of cranks, or maybe it stalled out once or twice when it was cold. If you're at all struggling with a hard start issue on a modern motorcycle, usually it's the battery. And chances are you've got a stock factory battery in there, which sure, it gets the job done, but there are better choices. This is the perfect opportunity to switch to a Fancium lithium-ion battery and free up some space in your motorcycle, save you a few pounds, and it'll make your whole bike easier to start in one fell swoop. Admittedly, lithium-ion batteries are a bit more fickle and you can nuke them in a whole bunch of different ways, like using standard trickle chargers or not warming the battery up enough when it's cold, but seeing as how it's the easiest way to shed a bunch of weight, why not at least give one a try? You can pick one up and then leave your old stock battery on the tender to keep it healthy, and then if you don't like it, just swap it back. Personally, I've stayed away from lithium-ion batteries, but I've considered them giving them another try because they've come a long way, and saving some weight on a supermoto sounds like a great idea. Some lithium-ion batteries even include a jump start mode where they have a little extra power on tap just in case. Just make sure you read the directions on those. Number 5, clean lube and adjust your chain. Look, you should be doing this anyway, and the chain on my bike is in desperate need of cleaning, so maybe I'm not the poster child for a healthy motorcycle chain, but keeping your chain in good spec not only improves the way your motorcycle rides, but it makes it last longer. Since you have your bike up on blocks anyway, give it a good clean, much longer than you might normally do during the riding season. Remove as much gunk and road grime and crap off the chain as possible, and then give it a really thorough inspection before you slather it all in lube. Look for pockets of rust, check the side-to-side and front-to-back play in the links, and see if any links are binding up. And don't forget to check your sprockets too. If you see any chipping or shark toothing, meaning that the leading edge of the sprocket has more material than the backside, you might as well replace your whole setup. Look, here's the thing. If you're riding your motorcycle like a normal person, meaning that there's a little bit over the speed limit here and there, hard accelerations, because let's face it, it is fun to ride like that, and some spirited rides in the twisties, chances are you're not going to notice a real change in the health of your chain from week to week during the riding season. There's steel parts that are literally designed to rub up against one another, and so when you do your chain cleaning during the riding season, you don't have to worry about them wearing out on you. Obviously, take a look at it just in case, and I mean, you're going to be looking at it anyway since you're working on it, but you don't need to be as meticulous and clean every single nook and cranny. Just wipe the crap off, then lube it up. But during the off season, when you spend more time off the bike, it pays to give it a good long clean and look at your chain. Don't forget to pop your front sprocket cover off and give that a good clean. You'd be surprised how much gunk builds up there. Number 6, and this might be one of the most obvious things on this list, but fill up your gas tank to the brim and add just a little fuel stabilizer. If you have a carbureted motorcycle, you should add draining your float bowl here to the list as well. Everyone knows that ethanol gas attracts water and can lead to rust and gunk building up in your fuel lines, fuel pump, injectors, or jets, or whatever. All you need to do to solve that problem is top off your gas tank and slap some stabilizer in there. If you decide to take a quick spin every now and again during the winter, it's worth filling up a big gas can with a pre-mixed fuel and stabilizer cocktail so that you can just top your tank off when you get back. If you're super paranoid about putting stuff in your gas, Fortnite did a whole video about gas additives and which ones are the worst for your bike, so just go watch that. But normally a full tank of gas with a bit of fuel stabilizer is all you're gonna need. If you're extra super paranoid, you can try to find pumps with reduced ethanol, but those are typically found in more rural places, so if you live in the city, you might need to drive a ways to get it. And lastly, number 7, lift your bike off the ground. Now, I'm not going to pretend to understand the science here, but something happens when you park your soft rubber on cold, hard concrete and don't move it for a while that leads to permanent flat spots, which can lead to goofy handling, increased tire wear, and forum dads telling you how you're a bad motorcyclist. Now, I've seen people putting layers of cardboard under their tires, wood blocks, carpet, overinflating their tires, all sorts of crazy stuff just to try and keep the tires healthy, but the answer is much simpler. Just take a rear stand that you probably already have, go get a front stand, and suspend your bike in the air. Don't even bother with overfilling the tires either. Just take them to standard pressure and let them slowly air down and refill them. If it's contact with the ground that scares you, eliminating that entirely can cost you less than $100, and you're going to need both a front and rear stand eventually anyway. Just go to Harbor Freight and pick up a pair of cheapo stands. Fact, a cheap motorcycle stand works just as well as a fancy motorcycle stand. Goodbye.
And just like that, when you least expect it, Cowboy Yammie is back at it once again. Why don't you click this video right here, you let me know what you think of it, okay? Leave me a nice comment, subscribe to the channel, leave me a like, do all those nice things, and y'all have yourselves a good day.